Okay, you're planning to go for a run. I would suggest that you do some limbering up before you go for the run. Not so much stretching, but just loosening off the joints. So the hip joints are very much involved. So lift and circle the hips would be a good thing to do. Lift and circle. Lift and circle. You can see that I'm less stable here on my right. It's my damaged ankle. I've got to do a bit more work. We can go back the way and back the way the other way. Swings, forwards and back, forwards and back. And we're trying to make it a swing in the hip joint as opposed to leaning and hinging forwards and back. Same thing on the other side. Swing, forwards and back, forwards and back, forwards and back. It's worth circling the ankles. And the other way. We can even do leg and ankle circles as we do in the pre-Pilates when we're in the mat, so that we're circling the leg and the hip joint and circle the other way. Clearly we need to do both sides, so we can just do ankles and we can do circles. Okay, high knees. And kick your heels. You could also do some rotations. I would get a nice wide stance and twist, looking over the shoulder. Of course we want to do lateral flexions. We could even do extensions. And a few shoulder rolls. My preference is always going backwards because we spend most of our time forward anyway, but naturally we could go in both directions. Okay, so now we're ready to go for a run. See you in a bit. Okay, we're done with the run. Now we want to stretch off. I'm going to show you indoor stretches and outdoor stretches. Number one, biggest muscle you've used here is the quadriceps, or set of muscles. It's the quadriceps. Grab hold of an ankle, hold on to something, push the hips forwards. You should feel a stretch in the thigh and no pain in the lower back. Same on the other side. Grab hold of a foot and hold on to the ankle or the lacy part of the foot as opposed to the toe. If you hold on to the toe, then the stretch will go into the ankle. We want the stretch to be in the front of the thigh. Aiming to keep the knees quite close together, not necessarily touching, but just at the same level, so that you're not lifting that foot. So you're not lifting that knee forwards. Tall and upright, belly button towards the spine, and gently ease out of that. Hamstring stretches, we can do it Pilates way, where we roll down, and then we hang down here, straightening the legs, and release, straighten the legs, and release, and straighten the legs. Restack the spine back up again. But an easier way of getting to the hamstrings is to step a foot out in front, plant both hands on the bent leg, and then stick your bum up behind you so that you are stretching the distance from the ankle through to the buttock. And you should feel a stretch in the hamstring of the downward leg. You don't even need to have the downward leg straight here. It's about pushing your bum up behind you. Come out of it, do the same on the other side. So hold on to the bent knee and then lift your bum up behind you. Calf stretches. It's good to have a wall to do this, where you bend both legs, shoot the heel forwards, and then stand up with the back foot. So that I'm stretching the calf of this downward leg, but it's my body weight that's holding me up, or my posture, so there's no energy required to create this stretch. The beauty of doing this against the wall is that we can angle the foot out or in and hit different fibers in the calf. Gently come out of it, same on the other side. Bend both legs, shoot a leg forwards, up onto the wall, and then stand up tall. Now the cool thing here is, if you squeeze with both buttocks, if you raise the crown of your head towards the sky, pull the belly button towards the spine and engage the pelvic floor, you'll get a better calf stretch. So apply all of your postural principles from Pilates and you'll get a better stretch. Gently come out of that. It is good to do the outside of the thigh to prevent runner's knee. So take the right leg over the left, stick the hips out to the left and lean the body to the right. And we're aiming for a stretch in here, in the side pocket. It's sometimes a hard one to feel, so you can step a little bit further, and you can also take this arm up and overhead, but you don't want to transfer the stretch too much into the torso on this one. It's not a bad thing, but it just means that you're not necessarily getting it in the tensor fascia lata, the outside of the hip muscle. Same thing on the other side. So the left leg goes across the right, the hips go to the right, the body leans to the left. Stretching in here. Top hand can come up and overhead. And relax. People often get sore shoulders from running, so we need to do shoulder shrugs, drawing up and drawing down. We've done that in Pilates plenty of times. And we want to turn the head from side to side. And the whole reason we're doing this outside is because it's going to rain a lot and you might not need to be able to come in and do your stretches indoors, but these are stretches that you can do outside fully clothed. Let me show you some indoor stretches. You've just come in from your run and now you want to stretch off indoors. We want to do the same kind of muscles that we did outside, front of the legs, back of the legs, glutes, hip flexors, but we're going to spend a little bit more time. If you can then, kneeling is a good thing, but only if the knees can cope with it, because it stretches the quadriceps and it allows you to start stretching out the hip flexors. From here, if you have this available to you, sit back and stretch the thighs here. You can push the hips up using the buttocks. If that's not available to you because of tension at the knee or at the ankles, then hopefully you can start kneeling, and the focus is here on the thighs. So we push the hips forwards, get a neutral spine, and then hinge back from here until you feel the stretch. So it's not about arching the spine up and over, and it's not about sitting back, but it's about leaning back from the knees. And that is a stretch that's available to many more people because the angle is not so acute at the knee. But you'll feel it more in the hip flexors here at the same time. If you want to stretch the hip flexor itself, you would step a foot up in front of you and take the other leg away behind you. Tall and upright, and shift forwards on the front leg. Now we want to make sure that that front foot is not behind the knee, it just puts less pressure on the knee. So start with that front foot quite far forwards, and then as we shift, the foot does come in front of the knee, maybe just a little bit. But it's about squeezing with the back buttock, the downward buttock, in order to stretch this hip flexor on. Again, we want no pain in the back because the hip flexors do have their origins in the lower back. So we want it to be a stretch down here, not a pain in the back. Squeeze with the buttock, gently come out of it. You can do it with the toes up, it's going to make it slightly more intense. Now these stretches we can hold for 20, 30, 60 seconds. And you'll find that you can ease off just that little bit, or the stretch eases off so you can push that a little bit further every 15, 20 seconds or so, every 2 or 3 breaths. We don't want to do it evenly on both sides. So we push forwards. There's no need to lay down on this one. And there's absolutely no need to stretch the back. You can just be leaning on this top leg and feeling it in the downward leg. Let's look at the hamstrings. So we've done front of thigh, hip flexors, we'll look at hamstrings. The easiest way to get to the hamstrings is just to sit tall and upright and fold forwards, trying to stick your bum out behind you. So it's not about stretching the back as we often discuss in spine stretch forwards in class. Here it's about stretching at the hip joint, pulling your body down towards the legs as much as you can. If your feet are active, then the
posterior chain, the back of the leg, is going to be more involved. So you can ease the feet off if that makes it easier and takes the pressure off the ankles. But it's just that little bit more intense if you have the feet active and pulled back. If you find that this is using too much energy, and I'm a fan of you doing stretches without engaging much energy, then a hamstring stretch lying down is a very good option. We can grab hold of the calf. The leg doesn't need to be straight, but we're pulling this leg up and over towards us. You can see that this is decreasing the angle at the hip joint. If we want to make this more intense, you would send the downward leg away. You could even flex the top foot. And I would suggest lying down. Now put cushions in here if you need them. I wouldn't worry about climbing up the leg, but here you can be in charge of how much stretch you put in to that leg. So again, you can hold it for 40 seconds a minute, and it's really worth doing these stretches for a long time after you've been running, because they're nice and warm and they're pliable. And gently come out of that. Do the same on the other side. Now, if you find that this is too difficult holding onto the ankle, you can hook something over your foot, get a towel over your foot and pull overhead with the two ends of the towel, one in each hand. And you don't need to have the legs straight, because what we're aiming for is a sensation of stretch somewhere in the muscle. If you have the legs too straight and you feel it too much in the back of the knee, then that's the wrong place to feel a hamstring stretch. So it doesn't matter whether you get the leg straight, it doesn't matter whether you get the leg very high. If you get a sensation of stretch down here, then you're giving yourself a hamstring stretch. So that's what we're interested in. You might even get a hamstring stretch by doing this, allowing the knee to soften off, because this is still stretching the hamstrings over the hip joint. We can do the same on the other side. The beauty of doing this version of a hamstring stretch is, as soon as you feel that you're running out of capacity here, you just start straightening the top leg, and that will kick in the hamstrings more in the belly. Because the hamstring muscles span the knee and the hip, so we can play with both the top and the bottom of the thigh, the joints above and below the thigh, to get a good stretch. It's really worth stretching the buttocks, the gluteals. Most people that come to us for massage and for Pilates with back pain have got some gluteal issues, most likely weakness, sometimes over tightness as well, but sometimes weakness. And my favourite way of doing this stretch is by taking one ankle in front of the other knee in a quadruped position, and then drifting back on the downward leg, coming down onto your elbows, and we should be getting a stretch in this buttock. No pressure at the knee. And if you find that you get so low that you're lying on top of your leg and you've nowhere to go, push forwards to get out of it, and then twist this foot further up towards this top corner. With that foot in place, the buttocks should get a bigger stretch. Essentially, if you can imagine yourself standing on my left foot at the moment, resting my leg in the windowsill. That's the flexibility that we're after. But it's just so lovely to do this without energy being used to make the stretch happen. So on the other side, bring that foot forwards in front of the knee, drift back on the backward leg, come down onto your elbows and hang here. So I'm a big fan of stretches where you don't have to do any work to keep in position. Gently come back out of that. Calf stretches. Now the calves, you've got a deeper and more superficial one, but they span the ankle and one of them spans the knee. So we can do it with the knee involved and the knee not involved. I showed you before the stretch standing tall and upright and then pushing the foot up against the wall. That stretches the both from the knee and the ankle, whereas this one does just from below, from the ankle. So you get the deeper calf stretch. Plant a foot whilst kneeling on the other one, and then leaning on with your chest on your knee. Push forwards here without lifting this heel, and it stretches the deeper portion of the calf, and it's an unusual stretch. We don't have to go very far to make it happen, so I just go from here to here, and I'm getting a good stretch. Again, you can turn the foot out and turn the foot in to get different fibers, but personally I prefer just to go straight over the top. I damaged this Achilles tendon, so I don't have a great deal of movement on this side. That's just the way it is. And relax. Same on the other side. So sitting down onto my right leg, planting the left leg, and then leaning forwards. You might notice that I'm getting further on this side because this ankle joint doesn't have the scarring that the other side does. Gently come out of that. To get to tensor fascia lata, the outside hip abductors, I would suggest lying down, cross a leg over the other with no space in between the two legs, and then just roll the hips across to the opposite side and hang here. And this should give you what feels like a buttock stretch, but it's also an outside of the thigh stretch. Stay here for a nice comfortable amount of time. So what I'm showing you here in the video is too short. Gently come back to the center, cross the legs the other way, and roll the other way. I'm up against the wall, but that's actually quite nice because it means I can just relax into it and I'm still getting a sense of stretch in here. Now this bit is quite cool. Come back here, keep the legs crossed left over right, but roll the legs to the left and let the right hip go. And it switches the stretch from being in the buttock to being more in that tensor fascia lata front of the hip, side front of the hip. Gently come out of that, cross the legs the other way. So the weight of my right leg is pulling my left leg over and it's stretching these muscles across the outer side of the hip joint, but a little bit towards the front. It's doing some rotation, so it's loosening up my back as well. Gently come out of that. As with all Pilates exercises, once we've done these gentle slowing down exercises, stretches after something like a run, to get up from this position, you want to roll yourself fully sideways and then come up with two hands to sitting. Awesome. Roll the shoulders. And you know what? We can do these spinal movements the same as we do in pre-Pilates. Rotations, lateral flexions, and extensions. And that will all make you feel looser. Enjoy yourselves, keep exercising, keep limber, and keep doing Pilates. We'll see you later.